This is a 10-minute presentation on the topic of blockchain in business that I also held at the Stockholm Blockchain Forum on April 11, 2019. Besides business, it also touches on ChromaWay and Chromapolis. Welcome to this presentation on blockchain in business. My name is Jörgen Modin. I'm the Chief Solutions Architect at ChromaWay, and my job is a lot about assisting entrepreneurs and customers with finding good blockchain solutions for their ideas and visions. ChromaWay is a company that has existed since 2014, so we're quite old in this field. And this summer we actually got funded for launching our new platform Chromapolis. Well, I'll talk about it a bit later. Here are some customers we've had and some of the press mentions we've had. So our big project is the Chromapolis public blockchain, of which a testnet version will be launched in about a month. This is a global system for dApps with high capacity for forums, games, markets and much more. So we've also been working with land registries in Sweden and in India, and we have an assets transfer system live on the internet, on the blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain actually in this case, since July 15, 2016. Actually trading shares or parts, I should say, of startups. We've also been working with a program called the Green Assets Wallet, which is about green funds, about using the blockchain to get enough information and get enough qualitative information in to make it possible for investors to invest in green impact projects outside of Northern Europe. And we're also working with a share registry with a Stockholm company called LegalWorks, also on the blockchain. First, before we go any further, what is a blockchain? Well, I think a very simple definition of that, from a user's perspective, is that it's about digitally signed statements, and that technology has been around since the 1970s. So it's nothing new. It was invented in 1970 and 1975 independently by two different groups. And we're largely, when it comes to digital ID solutions, using the same technology today. What's new with the blockchain is that for these digital signatures, we have exactly one context where they are stored. This means that you can avoid the problem of double spending. That is, that people promise things that you don't know about. With the blockchain, there should be exactly one place where you can check and hence build trust for that people are vouching for things that they actually have to stand for. So this thing that there's only one place to find signatures leads to clarity. And in the blockchain, we also have a distributed authority. We don't let one central database decide who has what digital signatures are allowed in, but there is a rule-based system and a participatory approach to getting those in. So there's clarity about the rules and there's openness for people to inspect the different blockchain transactions. So here are some of my experiences with relation to business. So I've been working mainly in the Swedish Land Registry and Blockchain project as a technical project lead, and here we see some of the partners involved in that project. So some insights. Blockchain can lead to simplicity. In the first version we had of modeling the process of transferring the ownership of a house, we had 35 steps. By analyzing these steps and looking at the signatures and looking at what actually was legally and from a business point interesting to save, we got that down in the last phase that we closed a couple of months ago, down to 8 steps. So by analyzing digital signatures and having exactly one place to look at them, you can often simplify the process of going from the initial condition to the actual result. This is also sometimes referred to as disintermediation. You cut out entities that are not needed anymore because you have a higher trust level through the discovery of signed information on the blockchain. Another thing we found out is that identity is very important. When you're dealing with some blockchains, such as the Bitcoin blockchain, identity is not important at all because it doesn't deal with anything outside of itself. It only talks about money, and money is defined as being on the blockchain. But if you're selling and buying a house, obviously you can't put the houses directly on the blockchain. So you need a system of identity, both for the things that you're buying and selling and also for the people who are involved. And one thing we noticed with that with some big ID systems in use today, they don't have any affordances for roles. So you can't really sign in the capacity of something, which is a big problem for the business side of things. Since For example, in the share registry project, we need to have somebody change the share registry, and maybe we don't want a multi-signature from all people on the board, but we would like one person to have that job assigned to them. Now, that means that that role must be discoverable sometimes, either at the ID provider or on the blockchain. So that is something that has been handled. An interesting idea is also to get the government authorities to handle roles, for example, Bolagsverket. Furthermore, GDPR must be taken into account, especially the right to be forgotten. And one way of getting around that is that you actually, people outside of the blockchain, their identities are outside of the blockchain on a separate database. And in that way, you can have an anonymous key or nonce on the blockchain. But also other ways of doing that is make sure your blockchain doesn't fall under the GDPR at all by not having real identities or being part of a government authority which doesn't fall under the GDPR. Finally, by doing all these things, you're not actually only building an app, you're building an ecosystem. And by doing that, so when you create signatures for something, not only the people in the project would be interested in what's on that blockchain, but also other parties are not even involved in the blockchain quite yet. So it's better to look at a blockchain as the start of a global thing that will include everything more or less. So you're building an ecosystem. So whatever information you put in can also be used from other aspects. Another thing we noticed that it's kind of hard for people to set up a complete blockchain infrastructure. So we created a new system called Chromapolis, which does that for you. And that was funded this summer. So we have quite some runway to do that. So the infrastructure for blockchain applications is we have the infrastructure supplied. It handles the complexity of setting up nodes or joining nodes. You can code your dApp in a very expressive language we have, which is very similar to Kotlin, but also includes relational algebra. I believe we have by far the most expressive and safe language for making dApps. And we have a solid relational foundation under it, because the actual foundation of Chromapolis is actually relational databases, which simplifies a lot of things. So looking at a bird's overview of Chromapolis, here is an example down to the bottom left. We have the decentralized apps. And the decentralized apps has one blockchain each. Whatever dApp you want to do, a game or anything, you have your own nodes, and those nodes can be procured in a marketplace by us in a safe way. We checkpoint that into Chromapolis, and finally we make a proof of work anchoring of that into either Ethereum or Bitcoin. So how do you integrate blockchain in business? I only have 10 minutes, sorry for this whirlwind presentation speed. So one thing you can look at, because of the ID problem, it's easier to work business to business in the beginning. It might not, with games doesn't make sense probably, but if you can do business to business first, the thing is that you can do things under contract law. You can sign contract about what things actually mean. You can exchange public keys and certify each other for what public keys you are using. This is valid for all levels, for exchanging information on the blockchain. For any smart contracts, you can refer back to the contracts on paper you've signed, what this system means. And you could even use tokens. If you go for the general public, it's a little bit more work, because you need a public key infrastructure, such as mobile bank ID or something like that. If you're doing games and you're living in the fantasy world, you might be able to skirt this, of course. Contracts you may want to have tried in court, because it's not only what you have, the contract you've signed between the general public and you, it's also about what the general public can be quite protected by laws. You need to check that. And tokens, you might get some questions from authorities such as a central bank if you are starting to do tokens on the system. Sometimes, I said we whittle it down from 35 steps to 8. Sometimes you can't really go that deep or that simply. So things will always reach complexity. And one thing that I personally think will happen is that the enterprises today will outsource a lot of their internal businesses to the blockchain, and that will remain as an insurance company, basically capping certain complexity on the blockchain. So I think that we will see enterprises turning into insurance companies, and they can even use prediction markets to try to mitigate the risk. So to summarize, I've seen the future. It is social scaling will supplant big enterprises, I think, with digital signatures, with discovery on the blockchain of everything. We don't need big enterprises anymore. We will have things that are inside big enterprises today be shared and commoditized, and this includes games. There will be open source games. I think there will be games that basically are just have an open source foundation and then different actors acting on top of that ecosystem. As I said before, big enterprises may become insurance companies. Small enterprises may well thrive. We hope that Chromapolis will show the way to build this ecosystem. So ways forward, don't be a player, be the game. We will have unprecedented levels of integration on the blockchain. Migrate resources to your strengths, outsource the rest, and leverage platforms. And we recommend Chromapolis, of course. Thank you.